Welcome to this episode of My Ramblings. Innovation. It's hard to put a title on this one. Innovation. At what price? When I was a cooperative education student in the Reich office, that's before I actually entered the actual, this is my career point, um, we had a fire alarm project, and the contractor was supposed to put an interface in that ties the building fire alarm systems to the base-wide reporting system so that the fire department would be called to a fire. And this guy had designed a fiber optic interface. Yeah, innovative and stuff. And, you know, I'm a college student, right? So I'm thinking, hey, this is pretty cool. I could have probably, well, did I take fiber optic design? I think looking back on it, I was designing such a thing. I didn't have access to its specs, its details, or drawings. So this submittal goes off to our fire protection branch. Fire protection engineer tells me we can't accept this. Um, One of the requirements we have is that it has to be UL listed. Now, UL is Underwriter Laboratories. They don't test products to see if they're neato and cool. They test products to make sure that they don't present a safety hazard or a fire hazard. They do other testing too um, that ensures that the equipment's going to work. Well, it's hard to say. Um, I don't remember all the details, but as I remember some of the UL stuff and going through the UL standards and using them for various purposes, they test a lot of stuff. But it's in a sense it's like the NEC. It's not meant to test, is this a good design? It's meant to test safety type stuff. That also relates to fire. And so this, the contractor is trying to get us to accept this, but I'm not going to go against the fire protection engineer. Um, and so, this submittal remained rejected. He actually had to go out and get the part that whoever the engineer was, whether it was a contracted engineer or an in-house government engineer, engineers and architect, I should say, I had to comply with what the engineer was calling for. And I talked about this a little bit with my manager. He's a GM13, and he posed a very interesting question: how is the government supposed to get anything new or high tech? You know, how are we supposed to get any innovation? I didn't really have an answer for him, but I listened to that. And then I went and thought about it, and between, conversations or the communication with the fire protection engineer, it really boils down to this. Innovation is good. We need innovation. But the price of innovation on this project would have meant that there might not, that if it failed and it wasn't UL tested, it would have gone against one of the NAFX criteria, and that was stuff that be UL listed. It would have gone against the review and what should I say, rejection by the fire protection engineer of his desire to use that product. And if it had failed, then you have people in the building. Um, there would have been a local fire alarm. Sometimes, as I learned later on in my career, there's areas of refuge. Sometimes it's, stay in place. It wasn't a high rise, it was a multi story building, however. I don't know if the procedure for that building would be to rush everybody outside. But they could have been, some of the people in there could have been dependent on the fire department getting there in time. And certainly the Navy, with all that it invested in building this building, would have had that property in jeopardy as well. And so that would have been saying the price for using this innovation is that those risks, the possibility of those two consequences, personnel safety and life, property damage, would have been the price in this case for government innovation. So it had to remain, submittal rejected. He had to submit what the contract that he bid on required of him. He was trying to make the argument. I don't mean this to point out anything about this contract. It's just an issue that, well, I bid on submitting this. Well, I can't even comment on that because, from my perspective, well, the contract called for this. I'm not sure what you bid on um, matters, but that's a really complicated matter. I hear a lot of stuff from contracting specialists, enough to know that I don't know enough about it to comment on it. And that's a contracting issue that needs to be resolved by the contracting specialist in cooperation with the contracting officer that the contracting specialist reports to. Anyway, innovation in the government. Thank you for tuning in.